Aleph Yud Gimel. He used to say, if one becomes renowned, he will eventually lose his renown. And he who does not increase will decrease. And one who did not learn is liable to death, and one who makes use of the crown will pass away. He used to say, if I am not for myself, who is for me? If I am for myself, what am I? If not now, when? Shammai says, make your Torah study fixed. Say little and do much, and receive every person with a pleasant countenance.
Okay.
Okay.
Rabban Gamliel says, okay, so interesting. He's not introduced here as having received from Hillel and Shammai, um, but I think he may have been descended from Hillel. Um, let's see that. All right, so this is Rabban Gamliel Hazaken.
Right.
Okay, so there were several Rabban Gamliel. So this is called the old one. Okay, and then Rabban ben Shimon ben Hillel, right? So he's the grandson of Hillel. That's right. Okay, so he was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. Um, okay, and and he says Asay Harav. He agrees uh, with, uh, with the Asay Harav, Asay Chaver. That was Rabbi Shua ben Parachia. Um, okay, but what he's talking about, this is not about learning, but in terms of teaching. That when you are when it comes to teaching Torah, and you have to have a Rav who has taught you what you're teaching on. Um, um, and remove yourself from doubts. Don't um, I'll stop the Levadcha. Don't pass him by yourself in any matter of sorrow, because if you'll make something mutter aser or aser mutter, so if you're making something that is something that was mutter, and you say, oh, I'm just going to be machmir over here and say it's aser. If you destroy, you're making somebody lose money. You say, oh, this chicken is, I'm not sure about it. Let's just say it's treif. You're right. That's a chumrah. You're taking away his money. Okay. And if you say that it's mutar when it's really asr, then you're causing him to do an avera. Okay. So you've got to get yourself to a position where you have, if you're paskening halacha, you can't pasken something out of safek. If you cannot work it out, then you do have to say, I'm not sure. Go and ask somebody who is, or I'll go and ask somebody who knows more than I do. But you can't issue a halacha out of safek when somebody else is going to be taking the rap for you if you've made a mistake. And do not take your master by estimation. Don't habituate yourself to doing it. It's okay to take the master by estimation if you're giving a little bit more, but this is and this is similarly the reason is to remove yourself from suffix, because the Torah gave a certain share in Maasros, okay, 1 in 10, and if you're giving less, then you're doing an avera, and if you're giving too much more, and if you're giving more on a regular basis, then you're taking away from what Hashem gave you. If you give too much, then the master is mefukal. It's not perfect master because okay. So he's saying over here that you're adding in a bit of tevel because it's not exact. Because there's a certain portion that becomes master on behalf of the tevel that was left behind, and that in itself becomes mutar. Remember, the whole thing started out as tevel, and you're taking a piece of tevel to make some other tevel mutar. And if you take the wrong proportions, then perhaps some of it doesn't work properly. So the truth is that you can take more and it does work. So you're not actually eating tevel. Um, I think he's just going ahead over here and wanting you not to do things out of safek because of the previous statement that you're going to be taking away from somebody something that's like yesterday. Okay, Shimon ben Nos. So the son is the Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that is. Call him I Gadalti ben Chachamim. He says, all my days I grew up among the Chachamim v'lo matati neguf tov ela shesika. He says, the best thing for the body is silence. Silence. Why? Because when you are silent, you're able to hear what other people are saying and take it in. When often I know this from from life is when you're talking and you're in a discussion or something with somebody, um, already while they're talking, you're already thinking of what the answer is that you're going to rebut them with. And silence, if you already have resigned yourself to be quiet, then then you've got to listen to the other person. And only after they've finished talking, you take it in, say, could they be right, could they be wrong, uh, and 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 work it out like that. Um, the lo hamidrash hu ha'ikar ila ila hamase. It is not the learning is not the most important thing. Ultimately it's got to be to do. So even in Divrei Torah, um, the Kabbalah Schar is not just about ikar Kabbalah Schar, ila alamase. When you're learning Torah, the whole point of learning Torah is to be able to do. There are very precious few mitzvahs in the Torah where Ben Surah, More, Irani Dacha, where you don't want to, where you're not going to actually put that into practice. And nowadays, korbanos. Yeah, but Yad Hashem, one day we'll apply our knowledge of korbanos. Um, okay, but the important thing about learning is to put what you've learned into practice. The Chol Hamarbe Devarim maybe said, and anyone um, who multiplies his words brings sin, right? Let's see what he says about this. If he reduces the amount of things that he says, he reduces his number of errors. And Midrash Shmuel explains our Mishnah like this. Oh, let's say he's talking about that. He says, he's also saying that in Midrash Shmuel that Lola Harif Bidrasha, not don't make long drushes about what needs to be done. Just get out there and do it. Okay, and anyone who keeps talking without doing things, he's the one who brings sin on himself uh, because if he just talks and doesn't do it, then he's turning people into Meizidim if they weren't doing it before. So all you're doing is instructing, and now they know, oh, this is what we should be doing, but we're not actually doing it. And brings the kitrug on Yisrael. So if you keep talking about things that need to be done and nobody ever actually does it, then it's a kitrug on Yisrael. That's an interesting take on it. Okay, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. So now this is a different Shimon ben Gamliel. The previous Shimon was the son of Rabban Gamliel Hazaken, and this is now his grandson, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So he skipped 2 generations now. And he says, Al Shloshet Devarim Olam Omeid. I remember we had this right at the beginning of the Masechta, okay? Is it there because al Torah, al Avodah, al Masim Tovim. And then he says, al Adin, al Emet, al Shalom. Okay, judgment on truth and on peace. Shenema emes or mishpat shalom shiftu b'sharichem. So he brings us from a passage where these 3 things are mentioned, and this is what he says is the most important. Emes. Now let's see. Now let's see if we can match those to Torah, Avodah, and Masim Tovim. So I'm going to go with Shalom as Masim Tovim, bringing peace between people. Emes being Torah, and Mishpat being Avodah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. The I'm looking now in Kahati, explaining what these things are. Al Adin, Al Emes. Right. Yeah. Again, that people that you've got to have proper judgment in court. MS that people should always tell the truth. Why that's worth. Whatever Allah Shalom and it's happy bein Malchios or bein Adam B'Chavero, whether it's between different kingdoms or between a man and his fellow. There's uh, these are the things that are holding the world together. And as I say, I think that corresponds to those three things that we learned in the first Mishnah, in the second Mishnah, I think it was. All right, let's go back and do Avodah Zarah. Well, let's learn about Avodah Zarah.
Because we're on we're on Aleph. No, I just messed up over here. What do you have for Kazara? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hey, Dalan.
Why remove this tissue in the wrong place? All right. Hey, Dalan. I'm sorry. Hey, Dalan.
Mm-hmm. One of these is lying in the carriage of the boat.
All right. Get the wrong. I don't think I'm not right. Let's move on. I'll get it after. Is that okay? All right.
Okay, fine. Hey, Dalan. It was Hey, Dalan. It's got a 80. You give away.
Avodah Zarah. Hey, Dalan.
Huh?
Avodah Zarah?
Avodah Zarah. Hey, Dalan. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said let's do Kazara, and I was looking at Avos. Hey, Dalan. And there's not. I'm right in the right place. Okay. Anyway, if one left his wine in a wagon or a boat, and he went by a shortcut and entered the city and bathed, it is permitted. If he informed them that he was going far, it is prohibited if there was time for him to puncture, patch, and allow to dry. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says only if there was time for him to open, apply a new seal, and allow to dry. If one leaves an idolater in a store, even though he goes in and out, it is permitted. If he informed him that he was going far, it is prohibited. If there was time for him to puncture, patch, and allow to dry, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says only if there was time for him to open, apply a new seal, and allow to dry. If he was eating with him at the dining table and he left a flagon on the dining room table and a flagon on the side table and he left him and went out, what is on the dining room table is prohibited, but what is on the side table is permitted. But if he said to him, pour and drink, even what is on the side table is prohibited. Open barrels are prohibited, sealed barrels are prohibited only if there was a time that it takes him to open, apply a new seal, and allow him to dry. If a troop of idolater soldiers enter the city in peacetime, open barrels are prohibited while sealed ones are permitted. In wartime, both are permitted because there is no time to perform libation.
Okay. Hideous, immoral base.
Separate pieces of Talmud food do not combine. These are the words of Rav Dosa ben Harkness, but the sages say it does combine. One can deconsecrate Ma'aser Sheni onto an unstamped coin. These are the words of Rav Dosa. But the sages say one cannot deconsecrate Ma'aser Sheni in this manner. One must immerse his hands in a mikveh for the katatas water, and these are the words of Rav Dosa. But the Chachamim say if one's hands have become tamei, his entire body is treated as though it had become tamei. The insides of a melon and that which is cut from a vegetable that a truma Medopsi permits their consumption by non-Kohanim, but the sages prohibit their consumption by non-Kohanim. 5 sheep, each of which is shorn of wool that weighs a mana and a half, are subject to the law of the first fleece. These are the words of Radosa, but the comments say 5 sheep shorn of wool that weighs any amount are subject to obligation. All rush mats are capable of becoming tamei with corpse tuma. These are the words of Reb Dosa, but the comments say rush mats can contract tumas midras. All braided threads are tahor except for those of a braided belt. These are the words of Reb Dosa. But the sages say all braided threads are capable of becoming tamei except for those of the cord used by wood dealers. Okay.
That's true.
Okay. So, basically, a man may not open a bakery or a dye shop under the storehouse of another, nor a cattle shed. In truth, in the case of a storehouse of wine, they permitted these except for the cattle shed. A store in a courtyard, one can block him by claiming, I cannot sleep due to the noise of those entering and leaving. One may make utensils to go out and sell them in the marketplace. The one cannot block him by claiming, I cannot sleep due to the noise of the hammer, or the noise of the mill, or the noise of the children. One whose wall was near the wall of another may not place another wall near it unless he distances 4 amos from it. And with regard to windows, he must leave 4 amos above them and 4 amos below and opposite them. One must distance a ladder 4 amos from a dovecote so that the matin should not spring into it, and a wall 4 amos from a gutter so that he cannot stand a ladder there. One must distance a dovecote 50 amos from a town, and a man may not build a dovecote within his own property unless he owns 50 cubits of land in every direction. The Mishna says an area of 4 the extent of a dove's flight. If he bought it, even if it is within an area of a quarter, it retains its standing. Okay. Okay, vamos. Okay, Aleph. The uncircumcised and all those who are Talmud may not eat truma, but their wives and slaves may eat truma. One with mutilated testicles and one who has a phallus was severed, and they and their slaves may eat, but their wives may not eat. However, if he did not cohabitate with her after his testicles were mutilated or her phallus was severed, she may eat. One who is considered someone with mutilated testicles, who is considered someone with mutilated testicles, anyone whose testicles were cut, even if only one of them, and who is considered a person whose phallus was severed. Anyone's phallus was cut off. However, if even a hair's breadth of the corona remained, it is fit. Persons with mutilated testicles or severed phallus are permitted to marry a convert or an emancipated slave woman. They are forbidden only to enter into the congregation, as it is stated, a person with mutilated testicles or a severed phallus may not enter the congregation of God. The Ammonite and the Moabite are prohibited from marrying into the congregation, and the prohibition is perpetual. However, where women are permitted immediately. The Egyptian and the Edomite are prohibited from marrying into the congregation only until 3 generations, both males and females. Reb Shimon permits the females immediately, but Reb Shimon said the matter is subject to a pretorian meeting. If in the case where the males were prohibited perpetually, the females are permitted immediately, then how much more so in the case where the males were prohibited only until 3 generations that their females should be permitted immediately? They replied to him, if this is a precept handed down, we will accept it. But if it's a ruling, there is a rebuttal to it. He said to them, not so. What I say is a precept. Mamzerim and Nessanites are prohibited from marrying into the congregation, and their prohibition perpetual, both male and female. Okay.
Thanks.
We go on to see it. Okay. Lof of the 6th year, which remains until the 7th year, is also some onions and dyers matter from choice soil. It's Shammai say they might be uprooted with wooden rakes. The Beis Hillel says with metal spades, and that they agree that the dyers matter of the odd sides may be uprooted with metal spades. From when on may one buy loaf in the 8th year? Rabbi Yehuda says immediately, but the comments say once the new abounds. There are implements.
Hold on. I
skipped
one. The skipped one. We started Gimel. We started Gimel, and then you skipped into Dalet.
I skipped Dalet. I'm sorry. Lof of the 6th year, which remains until the 7th year, is also some onions and dyers matter from choice soil. It's Shaman say they may be uprooted with wooden wakes. I did this. The Beis Hillel say with metal.
I think you turned the page in the middle. You started because they both Gimel and Dalet talk about loaf, and I think you didn't read the whole of Gimel. Just go back to Gimel.
I did not read Gimel, so let me go. If loaf remained during the 7th year, the Rebbe Eliezer says the poor gathered its leaves, they have gathered. But if not, they must make accounts with the poor. The Yeshua says if the poor gathered its leaves, they have gathered, and if not, the poor have no claim on them.
Okay.
Well, that was good. Okay. We go on to Caleb.
Yeah, how long is it? Short. Okay, then let's go.
Okay, Caleb, here we go. Measuring instruments used for wine and oil and soil mastria and a mustard strainer, and a wine strainer have an exterior and an interior. These are the words of Rameya. Rabbi Yehuda says they do not have an exterior and an interior. Rabbi Human says they do have an exterior and an interior, and that they were rendered tamei through their exterior. The contents remain tahor, but one must immerse the entire vessel. Regarding a rover and a half rover, if the rover becomes tamei, the half rover does not become tamei, and if the half rover becomes tamei, the rover does not become tamei. They said before Rabbi Akiva, given the half rover is the exterior of the rover, the utensils whose interior became tamei does not its exterior become tamei. He said to them, the question is that of the group of students who sit in front, or the person, perhaps the rover is considered the exterior of the half rover. The utensil whose exterior becomes tamei, its interior does not become tamei. If the rover becomes tamei, the rover and its exterior are tamei, but the half rover and the exterior are tahor. If the half rover becomes tamei, the half rover and its exterior are tamei, but the rover and its exterior are tahor. But if the exterior of the rover becomes tamei, the exterior of the half rover is tahor. And these are the words of Meir, but the comments say we do not divide exteriors. When one immerses the utensil, he must immerse it in its entirety.
Okay, and we're done.
Great day. Enjoy. Okay. Bye bye.
Okay,
See you tomorrow.
good.
Let me see.